Groovy English Podcast.
Hey there! Welcome back to Groovy English. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Aiden. We share real stories, useful tips, and everyday English to help you grow with confidence.
Wherever you are in your English learning journey, we're glad you're here.
If you're enjoying the podcast, feel free to like, subscribe, or share it with a friend. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Groovy English, where we keep your learning real, fun, and maybe just a little bit messy in the best way. I'm Daniel, your host, and today we're going to get into a topic that hits close to home for me and, I suspect, for a lot of you out there. So here's the big question. Is your need to be perfect holding you back? Are you secretly waiting to speak English perfectly before you actually use it? Are you afraid to make mistakes, even tiny ones, because you think they'll make you look silly, or worse, like you're not good enough? If that sounds familiar, trust me, you're not alone. I've been there. And today we're going to talk about why perfection is killing your progress and how to let go of it, one wonderfully imperfect sentence at a time. Let's dig in. First, let me tell you a story. When I first started learning French, I was obsessed with grammar. Every sentence I wrote had to be perfect. I'd spend 10 minutes thinking about the correct gender of a noun or the exact verb tense. I had notebooks filled with rules and exceptions. But here's the thing, I wasn't speaking. I wasn't writing anything creative. I wasn't using the language in any real, meaningful way. I was a perfectionist, and I was stuck. Sound familiar? A lot of English learners fall into this same trap. You study every day. You watch videos. You do grammar drills. But when it comes time to speak, to write something spontaneous, to jump into a real-life situation, your brain freezes. That's not a language problem. That's a perfection problem. Let's talk about where that perfectionism comes from. Often it's fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of looking uneducated or childish. Fear of saying something wrong and being laughed at. We associate mistakes with failure. And in school or work, that might be true. But in language learning, mistakes are the magic. Perfection makes you play small. It keeps you quiet when you should be practicing. It turns learning into a performance instead of a journey. But here's the truth. You can't improve without doing, and you can't do without trying, and trying always involves messing up. That's how humans work. That's how babies learn to talk. They babble, they mispronounce, they say things in funny ways, and adults cheer them on. That's how you learned your first language. So why do we treat second languages so differently? Let me ask you something. Have you ever listened to a non-native English speaker who wasn't perfect, but you still totally understood them and even admired their courage or their accent? Of course you have. We all have. We're usually much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. But when it's our own voice, we suddenly demand perfection. Zero mistakes. No hesitation. Perfect pronunciation. And when we fall short of that imaginary standard, we shut down. We tell ourselves we're not ready. We need to study more. We need to wait. But that day never comes. So let me be super clear here. Progress and perfection are not friends. You can choose one or the other, but not both. And in language learning, progress is way more useful. Let's talk about the practical impact of perfectionism. If you're always waiting for the perfect time or the perfect sentence, you won't practice. If you're scared of sounding stupid, you won't speak. If you're focused on being correct all the time, you'll never take creative risks. And language is full of risks. It's messy. It's weird. It's playful. It's full of exceptions and slang and accents. If you're always focused on the rules, you might miss the actual communication. You might say, I am not sure if I should use present perfect or past simple, while the person you're talking to is just trying to understand your story. The point of language isn't to be perfect. The point is to connect. Now I want to share something I tell my students all the time. Ready? Fluent doesn't mean perfect. Fluent means comfortable. Let that sink in. Fluent speakers make mistakes. Native speakers make mistakes. Listen to any conversation and you'll hear people repeating words, correcting themselves, using weird grammar. But they're comfortable. That's what fluency really is, freedom. The freedom to express yourself without fear. The freedom to say and still make your point. The freedom to laugh at yourself when you mess up and keep going. So if your goal is fluency, your first job is to get comfortable with being imperfect. Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we quiet that perfectionist voice inside our heads and just go for it? Here are a few things that have helped me and my students. Lower the stakes. You don't need to impress anyone. Talk to yourself. Record voice memos. Write messy journal entries in English. Nobody's watching. You're allowed to stumble. 2. Celebrate small wins. Did you order food in English today, even if it wasn't perfect? That's a win. Did you reply to a comment in English on YouTube? Progress happens in tiny moments. 3. Surround yourself with imperfect English. Watch vloggers, listen to real conversations, talk to other learners. The more you see non-perfect English working just fine, the more relaxed you'll feel. Here's another tip. Practice like a kid. Seriously. Kids don't care about being perfect. They make up words. They copy adults. They get corrected, but they don't stop. They learn through play, repetition, and experimentation. Adults can learn the same way. You don't need to overthink every sentence. Just try things. Say them out loud. See what happens. I remember one time I said, I'm boring, instead of I'm bored, in front of a French guy. He laughed, but in a kind way, and I laughed too. I never forgot the difference after that. The mistake taught me more than a textbook ever could. Let's also talk about perfection on social media, because it's a big one. You see English learners online with perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, perfect captions. But what you don't see are the 10 takes they deleted, or the script they memorized, or the editing tools they used. Real life is not like that. In real conversations, you don't get to rewind or polish. You speak. You pause. You think. You mess up. That's normal. If you're only practicing English in a way that allows for editing and control, you're not building real confidence. You're building a performance. So let go of that polished version. Practice being real. Let me give you a challenge. This week, try something uncomfortable. Speak English to someone, even if it's just a short sentence. Don't aim for perfect grammar. Don't worry about using fancy vocabulary. Just say what you need to say. Be brave. Be messy. Then, afterward, reflect on what you did right. Yes, right? Not wrong. Did you communicate? Did the other person understand you? Did you survive the moment? If yes, that's a success. Every time you do this, your brain learns, hey, I can do this. You build courage like a muscle, one imperfect repetition at a time. Another thing I've noticed is that perfectionism often shows up when we compare ourselves to others. You hear someone speaking fluently and you think, I'll never sound like that. Or you see someone pass an English exam and feel like you're falling behind. But comparison is not the point. You're on your journey. And let me tell you, everyone struggles with something. Maybe that fluent speaker you admire still can't write an email. Maybe that exam taker has anxiety about speaking. You don't see the full picture. So don't let other people's highlight reels make you doubt your own progress. Instead of asking, am I as good as them? Ask, am I better than I was last week? And you know, this fear of imperfection doesn't just stop you from starting. It stops you from enjoying the process. You become so focused on the tiny details, the grammar mistakes, the pronunciation slip-ups, that you forget to celebrate the big picture. You're actually speaking a new language. That's incredible. I've met so many learners who freeze mid-sentence because they're afraid they used the wrong verb tense. And I always tell them the same thing. Native speakers make grammar mistakes too. I do it in my own language all the time. What matters more is that you keep going. Keep communicating. Progress isn't a perfect straight line. It's messy. It's full of weird mistakes, awkward pauses, and moments where your brain just blanks out. And that's okay. That's actually how your brain is learning. It's forming new pathways. But if you never give it permission to fail, it won't know how to grow. Sometimes I like to imagine learning English like learning how to dance. You don't stand still reading a book about dancing for 5 years and then suddenly perform a flawless ballet. No, you stumble around, you fall, you laugh, you sweat. And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it real. And here's another thing. Perfectionism often disguises itself as discipline, but it's actually fear in a fancy outfit. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of trying and still failing. But let me tell you something. Trying and failing is 1,000,000 times better than not trying at all. I've had podcast episodes that flopped. I've written scripts that felt clunky. And I've spoken English in ways that made me cringe later. But each time I got back up, I got better. Not because I aimed for perfection, but because I aimed for honesty, for effort, for real progress. When you let go of the need to be perfect, you become more present. You start to enjoy the little victories, like understanding a joke in a movie, or finally remembering that one tricky phrasal verb. And those little moments? They're golden. They're what real fluency feels like. I want to be super honest here. There were times I almost gave up on English. Not because I hated it, but because I didn't feel good enough. I felt like I was chasing this impossible standard. But the day I stopped trying to sound like a textbook and just started talking like a human being, everything changed. You know what changed the most? My confidence. I stopped apologizing every time I made a mistake. I stopped saying, sorry, my English isn't very good. I started saying, hey, I'm learning. I'm doing my best. And that made people more open, more kind, more excited to talk with me. So if you've been waiting for permission to stop being perfect, here it is. From me to you, you do not need to be perfect to be successful, to be fluent, or to be proud of yourself. Every time you listen to an English podcast, even if you don't catch every word, you're learning. Every time you say something in English, even if it's broken, you're growing. Every time you feel nervous, but speak anyway, you're winning. Here's something fun to try. Pick a day this week and call it your mistake day. Your goal? Make as many mistakes in English as possible. Seriously. Say weird things. Mix up your tenses. Mispronounce stuff. But do it confidently. You'll be amazed how much you learn when you stop being afraid of messing up. I sometimes ask my students, what would you try if you weren't afraid of making mistakes? The answers are beautiful. I'd join a conversation group. I'd finally record a video. I'd talk to that friend who only speaks English. These aren't small dreams, they're big breakthroughs waiting to happen. One of the biggest myths in language learning is that it has to be serious all the time. But guess what? Laughter helps you learn faster. Play helps you remember more. And joy? Joy makes you want to come back every day and keep going. So let joy in. Let silliness in. Let yourself be human. Let's not forget that perfectionism can also make us compare ourselves to others. We scroll through social media and see someone speaking English fluently and think, why am I not like that yet? But you don't see their journey. You don't see the thousands of mistakes they made behind the scenes. Comparison kills creativity. It kills your voice. So instead of comparing, try connecting. Reach out to people who inspire you. Learn with them. Talk with them. Share your own story. You'll realize we're all on this imperfect, beautiful journey together. I've learned more from real, honest, unpolished conversations than I ever did from perfect grammar charts. Don't get me wrong, grammar has its place. But connection will take you further than conjugation charts ever could. Sometimes, progress doesn't look like a big leap. Sometimes, it's just the fact that you didn't give up today. You listened to a podcast. You thought in English for a few seconds. You answered a question in class. These are tiny victories. And they add up. Oh, how they add up. If I could leave you with one powerful image, it would be this. You're not building a glass tower that needs to be flawless. You're building a path, step by step, brick by brick. And every brick matters, even the ones with cracks. Especially those. Another thing I've learned is that most of the people we admire, those fluent speakers, confident writers, charismatic podcasters, they all started with imperfect efforts. They stumbled through their sentences, mispronounced words, and probably had moments where they felt totally inadequate. But they kept showing up. They embraced imperfection as part of the journey, not a failure to be ashamed of. So why should we expect ourselves to be any different? Letting go of perfection doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means being kind to yourself while you improve. It means understanding that progress is not linear, and that mistakes are not proof of weakness. They're signs that you're actually doing the work. If you're showing up consistently, you're already winning. The more you accept your imperfect efforts, the faster you'll grow, and the more fun you'll have along the way. And here's something else I've noticed. Perfection often disguises itself as productivity. You might feel busy all the time, editing that one sentence again and again, rewriting your notes, organizing your flashcards, but you're not really moving forward. You're circling the same safe zone, afraid to step outside and speak, afraid to write something raw and unpolished. The truth is, progress often looks messy at first. It's not clean. It's not perfect. But it is real. One thing that helped me personally was setting a rule. I don't allow myself to rewrite anything more than once when I journal in English. Because the first time I write something, it's my authentic voice. It's where my current skills are. If I rewrite it 100 times, I'm not improving. I'm just hiding. and that doesn't serve me in the long run. So I keep the mistakes even when I cringe. Because that cringe? That's where the growth lives. Also, can we talk about how perfection robs us of joy? When you're constantly trying to sound correct, it's hard to enjoy the beauty of the language. English is full of weird idioms, strange spellings, and exceptions to every rule. If you get too caught up in perfection, you miss the playfulness, the humor, the rhythm. You miss the moment. Language is a living thing. It's meant to be danced with, not dissected like a science experiment. Think about kids learning to speak. They don't worry about grammar. They just try. They make tons of mistakes. And yet, they improve so fast. Because they're not held back by fear. They're not overthinking. They're focused on connection, on being understood. That's where the magic happens. And we, as adults, can learn from that same fearless approach. So next time you feel stuck or frustrated, ask yourself, am I trying to be perfect, or am I trying to grow? Because one of them leads to real change. The other keeps you exactly where you are. And honestly, you don't need permission to move forward. You just need to let go of that tiny, nagging voice that says you're not ready yet. You are. Progress isn't about perfection. It's about momentum. Keep showing up. Keep making noise. Keep being brave. Before we wrap up, let me say this. Your accent? Not a problem. Your grammar? A work in progress. Your vocabulary? Always growing. You don't need to be perfect to be understood. You don't need to be perfect to be respected. And you definitely don't need to be perfect to be proud of yourself. The real goal is not perfection. The real goal is connection. It's confidence. It's clarity. It's courage. And you already have everything you need to start. All right, I hope this episode gave you something to think about, and maybe even a little push to be kinder to yourself. Remember, every mistake you make is proof that you're learning, that you're showing up, that you're doing the work. So next time you feel that perfectionist voice creeping in, just smile and say, thanks, but I'm going for progress today. You got this. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow Groovy English on your favorite podcast platform and share it with someone who needs to hear this. I'll catch you in the next one. And until then, stay groovy, stay brave, and stay beautifully imperfect.
Your English is shining brighter by the minute. Hit that next video to keep leveling up your skills. Or dive into our other episodes for more secrets to talk like a pro. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to join the Groovy English crew.